Listen, little girl, if you haven't noticed, there's some pretty freaked out things on this train. And I, for one, want to get out of here. I don't think we stand a chance doing it alone.
You expect me to trust you, a wanted felon? I don't need your help. I can handle this on my own. And don't call me little girl.
All right, Miss Do-It-Yourself. What should I call you?
The name is Rebecca Chambers, but that's Officer Chambers to you.
Leon, I'm sorry to interrupt your vacation, but we wouldn't be here if it wasn't serious. We think you might have some intel, and we need it. Now.
Richard's doing well, Chris. He should recover soon.
Good. Richard needs you now.
As soon as Richard gets better, we'll come after you.
Rebecca, you okay with a gun?
Yes.
All right. I'm gonna continue my investigation.
Be careful. Okay?
Usually, being a key character in the first entry of a series or franchise ensures a path to stardom and lasting prominence. But every rule has its exceptions, and in the world of Resident Evil, that exception is Rebecca Chambers, a name that often flies under the radar in such a historic series. She is one of the most underused and underappreciated characters in the franchise. In fact, I think she is definitely the most underused. Despite her significant role in the origins of the franchise, she has been sidelined in favor of other characters, namely Leon, Jill, Claire, and Chris, leaving fans longing for more, to see more of her, to see her shine. Let's dive deep into Rebecca's character, exploring her contributions to the series, why she deserves more recognition, and how Capcom has missed numerous opportunities to fully utilize her incredible potential. Rebecca Chambers made her debut in the original Resident Evil, released in 1996 and remade in 2002, as one of the surviving members of S.T.A.R.S Bravo team, who finds herself trapped in the Spencer mansion. Her role in the game varies greatly depending on whether the player chooses to play as Chris Redfield or Jill Valentine. She appears most prominently in Chris's scenario, where she plays a similar role to the one Barry Burton plays in Jill's scenario, supporting, helping, and backing up the lead character several times throughout the game. Rebecca's inclusion in the game is significant, as it solidifies her as a key figure in the early days of the Resident Evil saga. Throughout the mansion incident, Rebecca's role is that of a pure supportive character, unlike Barry, who is more offensive, providing muscle and firepower. She helps Chris by providing medical aid, such as when he's poisoned by Jan, solving puzzles, and helping to unlock areas that are crucial for progression, like playing Moonlight Sonata on the piano. Something Jill does herself, which Chris cannot replicate, hence why Rebecca has to step in to assist, revealing just how brilliantly talented she is, and at such a tender age at that. One of the most iconic moments is when Rebecca must create the B-Jolt, a chemical solution needed to weaken the monstrous Plant 42. This moment not only showcases her scientific and medical expertise, which sets her apart from the other characters in the series, but also highlights her quick thinking and ability to remain calm, even under pressure despite her age and lack of experience. These qualities all allowed her to save Chris, which is obviously a very important accomplishment. No wonder you get a trophy for this. Though of course this isn't the only time she helps him. It's only perhaps the most significant one. So without her, Chris, one of the pillars and icons of the series, wouldn't have made it out of the first nightmare and game alive. However, Rebecca's involvement in the mansion incident is often overshadowed by the exploits of Chris and Jill. Despite her crucial contributions, she is rarely given the credit she deserves for surviving the horrors of the mansion and aiding in the downfall of Umbrella's sinister plans. Her youth and inexperience, which could have been interesting elements to explore in future games, are instead left largely unexplored. This underutilization is a disservice to a character who played an essential role in one of the most pivotal events in Resident Evil history. It certainly would have been fascinating to see just how her immaturity and naivety shaped her later experiences. Resident Evil 0, released the same year as the remake of the original game, provided us with a chance to experience the true beginning of the series. Since it's a prequel to the first game and it serves as Rebecca's introduction as a lead character. In fact, it's the first and only time she is a main playable character in the series. RE0 gives fans a deeper look into her early days with S.T.A.R.S Bravo team by showing us the events that led to the infamous mansion incident. This game reveals the origins of Umbrella's T-Virus and the chaos it unleashed. As a young and relatively inexperienced member of the team, Rebecca is thrust headfirst into a nightmarish scenario that greatly tested her resilience and resourcefulness. Partnered with Billy Cohen, a convicted ex-soldier, Rebecca's journey through the Umbrella-owned Ecliptic Express and the training facility showcases the naivety, earnestness, innocence, optimism, idealism, and dedication to her mission that come with such youthful immaturity. Elements that contrasted beautifully with Billy's more realistic, brash, and seasoned demeanor, highlighting Rebecca's callow and unpolished nature, which makes her quite endearing, wonderfully refreshing, and extremely likable. Not to mention adorable, especially when she refuses to be called a little girl and even demands respect, to be treated like the police officer she is. No wonder Billy tries to give her a head pat. Better yet, despite what these personality traits might suggest, she is still feisty and not shy or meek whatsoever, which is partly why she can get through such harrowing experiences.
You expect me to trust you, a wanted felon? I don't need your help. I can handle this on my own. And don't call me little girl.
All right, Miss Do-It-Yourself. What should I call you?
The name is Rebecca Chambers, but that's Officer Chambers to you.
Her medical skills are vital throughout the game, with her ability to mix herbs and treat wounds emphasizing her role as a healer, a medic, a role rarely seen in this series. In fact, Rebecca is the only protagonist in Resident Evil that has such a skill set and background, which sets her apart for better and for worse. However, it's her adaptability and bravery in the face of overwhelming danger that truly stands out. Despite being the youngest and least experienced member of S.T.A.R.S, she never falters, showing a strength of character and a resolve that should have been built upon in later games. Capcom, however, missed a significant opportunity to expand on Rebecca's story following the events of Resident Evil 0. While the game itself is a solid entry in the series, at least I think so, it remains an isolated chapter in her life, leaving fans to wonder how her experiences shaped her future within S.T.A.R.S and beyond, a treatment many other characters did receive. Her absence in subsequent mainline games is a glaring and unfortunate oversight, especially given her depth, complexity, and unique set of skills and personality introduced in Resident Evil 0. And the fact that said absence spans, at least on the surface as you'll see, 15 years, which is simply unacceptable. Like outside retellings of Resident Evils 1 and 0 in Umbrella Chronicles, special guest appearances like in RE5's Mercenaries mode, and a curious little secret that's coming up, Rebecca would not grace the series for well over a decade. This is quite unfair for a character that was there from the start, one who also survived the initial nightmare. Now, as it turns out, there's a surprising and somewhat puzzling chapter in Rebecca's life that many fans might not be aware of. I certainly did not know about this until I sat down to conduct research for this video. Did you know that there is a part of Rebecca's story that was never adapted into a game or a movie? Instead, it was turned into a stage play. Yes, you heard that right, a stage play. Sometime after the fall of Raccoon City, Rebecca continued her education, eventually achieving a doctorate in virology, intent on helping her more combat-experienced friends in a support capacity. During this time, she was invited by Chris to join the BSAA as a consultant, which she readily accepted. Rebecca's role became crucial when a T-virus strain spread across St. Cloud, Minnesota and Rochester in 2005. She took part in its defense, saving police officer Tyler Howard from zombies and working with him during the outbreaks. By 2010, Rebecca was employed as a university lecturer while also serving as a BSAA advisor. Her investigation into a series of missing person cases at Philosophy University in Australia led her to uncover a sinister plot involving Dr. Liam Howard, an American scientist who had been conducting illegal genetic experiments on students, turning them into zombies. The situation escalated into a full-blown T-virus outbreak, requiring the intervention of a BSAA team, including Chris and Pierce Nivens. Yes, Pierce, who only appeared in RE6, also had a chapter of his life depicted in this play. The outbreak was eventually contained, but not before Rebecca encountered Mary Gray, the only successful candidate of Dr. Howard's experiments, who had been genetically altered to become smarter but ultimately, in classic Resident Evil fashion, mutated into a more powerful and dangerous creature. The entire incident was resolved with explosives, but the whole ordeal had the potential to be an epic addition to a game or movie in the series. It could have been just what Rebecca needed to feel less underused. It's baffling, at least to me, that Capcom chose to limit this part of her story to such a niche medium, with undoubtedly a much smaller audience and appeal, since it was only shown in Japan and only for a little over a week from October 22, 2015 to November 1st, 2015. And not everyone likes stage plays. Not to mention that this format likely didn't allow for the level of detail and expansive storytelling that a game or movie could have provided, since typically plays tend to be 1 to 2 hours long, a duration close to that of a movie, sure, but much shorter than a standard game. Plus, even if the play is as long as a movie is much more approachable, even if they did later release the entire play on DVD. So it's another missed opportunity to give Rebecca the spotlight she truly deserves, to allow her to leave a bigger, deeper mark on the series. Now, I'm legitimately curious. How many of you knew about this? Again, I certainly didn't until just recently. And it makes me wonder why Capcom decided to go this route instead of giving us more Rebecca in a more mainstream and accessible way. Also, just to be clear, I'm not hating on stage plays. They can be quite good. It's just that in this case, it makes no sense to have one for a series that is predominantly focused on video games and movies, especially if the story you are choosing to tell in this format is canon. You're just asking to leave most fans in the dark, alienating them from and denying them a part of the franchise, which is just wrong. Like, knowing what happened in this stage play allows Vendetta to make a lot more sense, and it feels like a more natural part of the storyline. Speaking of which, Rebecca's extended absence from the series, or I guess technically her absence from the mainline series, finally came to an end in the CGI animated film Resident Evil Vendetta. For longtime fans, this was a moment of great excitement and anticipation, as Rebecca had been missing from the spotlight, or rather the known spotlight, for far too long. Vendetta, released in 2017, is set between the events of Resident Evil 6 and Resident Evil 7. And it sees Rebecca, now working as a university professor and a researcher, continuing her work in biochemistry, the very field that set her apart from her peers and that made her such a valuable asset on that fateful night in the Arklay Mountains, which also allowed her to continue her fight against bioterrorism from a different angle. She is the one who identifies the new virus strain used by the film's antagonist, Glenn Arias. She works to develop a vaccine. Her role in the film is crucial, as it's her scientific expertise which once again becomes the key to fighting a bioweapon threat. In fact, her vaccine ultimately saves the day, showing that Rebecca continues to be an important figure in the franchise whenever she does show up, which again is not very often. The film also gives us a glimpse into her life post-S.T.A.R.S, revealing that she has not only survived, but she has also thrived, using her vast knowledge to save lives on a global scale, battling the horrors unleashed by Umbrella and others like them in her own distinct way. A way that does not involve direct confrontation or fighting, but is still effective and valuable. She is much like Claire Redfield in this regard. However, despite her critical role, Vendetta did not fully capitalize on Rebecca's return. While she was central to the plot, the film still placed more emphasis on the action-packed exploits of Chris Redfield and Leon S. Kennedy. Rebecca's character development fell stunted, as she was once again relegated to a supporting role rather than being allowed to shine as a lead. Even worse, she was turned into a damsel in distress, preventing her from making more meaningful, more active contributions to the unfolding narrative, consigning her instead to a more passive role, and worse yet, she even needed saving. Her return was definitely a step in the right direction, but it fell short of giving Rebecca the full recognition she deserves, especially after such a long absence. Thankfully though, we didn't have to wait nearly as long for her to return once more. In Resident Evil Death Island, released in 2023, Rebecca makes yet another appearance, further cementing her role in the ongoing current fight against bioterrorism. This film brings together some of the most iconic characters in the series. It sees Rebecca working alongside the biggest names in the franchise, Chris, Jill, and Leon, and the other often neglected and forgotten main girl, Claire. While this was an exciting prospect for fans, Rebecca's role in Death Island once again highlights the underutilization of her character. In Death Island, Rebecca's expertise is once again called upon to help combat a new viral outbreak. She is depicted as a vital member of the team, providing medical and scientific support to her more combat-oriented allies. Geez, where have I heard that one before? However, like her role in Vendetta, Rebecca remains in the background, with the film's narrative focusing more on the action and the more prominent characters. Yeah, no, this definitely sounds familiar. It's rather telling that Rebecca and Claire end up rubbing shoulders with each other for most of the latter half of the film, working together behind the scenes to back up their comrades who do most of the fighting. At least though, they do get some action in the final battle, giving Rebecca the chance to flex her abilities to still pull her weight on the battlefield despite this not being where she excels. She got to play a more active role than in Vendetta, showing she is not only valuable in a supporting role. This is definitely a favorable shift when it comes to how she should be portrayed or depicted in more games and movies. While her inclusion in these films shows that Capcom recognizes Rebecca's importance, or at least that they realized that they neglected her for far too long, it also underscores the persistent issue of her being underused. Her potential as a leading character remains untapped, as she is consistently portrayed as a secondary figure rather than a driving force in the story. Vendetta or Death Island could have been an opportunity to explore Rebecca's character further, perhaps even giving her a more central role in the narrative. Instead, they reinforce the idea that she is a supporting character in a series where she could be so much more. How can you not wonder if her combat skills have also developed over the years? Imagine if we finally got the chance to witness her growth in this aspect. Rebecca is a character with immense potential that has yet to be fully realized within the franchise. From her early days in Resident Evil 0 and 1 to her long-awaited return in Vendetta and Death Island, Rebecca has proven time and time again that she is more than capable of handling the horrors of the Resident Evil universe. Yet despite her talents and contributions, she remains one of the most underused characters in the series. Right up there with Claire, who has made more appearances throughout the franchise but remains similarly underrated and underutilized. It seems Capcom simply cannot find a lot of ways to make more and better use of characters who aren't primarily combat focused but instead take a more humanitarian approach to battling bioterrorism, using their skills to save lives and promote peace rather than engaging directly in the fight. This is understandable to an extent. After all, it's obviously much more exciting and engaging for players to jump headfirst into the horror and action of the series as characters that thrive in such situations. However, we know that when push comes to shove, Rebecca and Claire can and will fight, and they will do so well. I also understand though that pushing them too far into more combat-heavy scenarios would betray what makes them stand out, what makes them different from most of their peers. So it's a tricky conundrum, no doubt about that. There's also the fact that unlike other characters who have been with the series since its inception, Rebecca has never received a significant defining moment that cements her legacy within the franchise. How many of you remember Chris taking on the mutated Wesker in RE5? Or Jill working alongside Carlos to bring down Nemesis in RE3? Or how about Leon's fight against Krauser in RE4? Rebecca has been there from the beginning, yet she has never had the chance to stand on her own in the same way, to be given the opportunity to be more than just a supporting character. Her importance to the series is undeniable, but it's frustrating to see how Capcom has consistently missed the mark when it comes to fully utilizing her character. Just how many times must she save the day from the sidelines before she gets to take center stage? It doesn't help that the one game where she was a main character seems to also be one of the more overlooked and underappreciated titles in the series. Resident Evil 0 is not as highly regarded as some of the other games, nor does it seem to be as fondly remembered, iconic, or memorable. At least Claire has Code Veronica in her resume, which we can all agree is a banger of a game, right? So basically, it seems Rebecca, at least in the eyes of Capcom, simply does not fit the mold of a traditional Resident Evil protagonist. The series is known for its strong, action-oriented characters who take on hordes of the undead and bioweapons with guns blazing. Rebecca's more cerebral and reserved nature, combined with her youth and inexperience, sets her apart from the likes of Chris, Jill, and Leon. However, this difference is exactly what makes her such a compelling character. Her intelligence, resourcefulness, and medical expertise provide a refreshing change of pace from the usual action-heavy approach. In a franchise that has become increasingly focused on bombastic set pieces and high-octane action, Rebecca offers an alternative that could have added depth and variety to the series. If only Capcom could have realized this and seized the opportunity to diversify their storylines. Rebecca represents the potential for Resident Evil to explore different facets of survival horror, to tell stories that go beyond the typical one-man army narrative. Her character embodies the idea that heroes come in many forms, not just those who are skilled with a gun, but those who can think critically, act with compassion, and use their knowledge to save lives. Despite her character's limited use, Rebecca has left an indelible mark on the Resident Evil series, and her presence is still felt whenever she does appear. The fact that fans continue to clamor for her return speaks volumes about her lasting appeal. She deserves to be a more prominent figure within the franchise, a main character capable of standing side by side with the big hitters in the series. Her character arc, filled with earnest kindness, a commitment to fighting evil and saving lives, resilience, intelligence, pure-hearted compassion, and bravery, deserves more than just occasional appearances. Rebecca should be a cornerstone of the Resident Evil narrative, not a footnote. After all, she was there from the very beginning. In fact, chronologically, she predates even Jill and Chris. But Capcom keeps missing the mark with her. As fans, we can only hope that future installments in the series will finally give Rebecca the recognition and development she deserves. If not RE9 or a future game past this, then at least the remakes of RE1 and RE0 or even a new CGI movie. Until then, she remains a testament to and a prime example of the untapped potential and missed opportunities within the Resident Evil universe, as well as the many characters that do not get the treatment, focus, recognition, value, and importance they highly deserve and are entitled to. Rebecca Chambers, compassionate medic, nurturing spirit, brilliant scientist, unsung heroine, unwavering supporter, pure-hearted innocence, youthful prodigy, untapped well of potential, and almost hidden and forgotten. Thank you so very much for watching. Let me know how you feel about Rebecca and why in the comments below. Also, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe for more Resident Evil. Plus, check out some more videos just like this one by clicking the links on screen and in the description below.